big day, very important. But we need a volunteer for the toddler nursery. What Lizzie's got? She gonna stay the whole time. All right, well, we got that covered. All right, well, it's so good to see everybody here. So good to have visitors. And this is the last installment of our family conference. It's been a great time in the Word, and hopefully been very challenging and instructive to everybody. But Jerry Chandler built a great foundation this morning. If you missed it, you missed some good stuff. But if you pick up one of the sheets back there, his first 2 points we covered this morning. He's going to do 3, 4, and 5 at the 11 o'clock hour. So you can at least see the scripture references in the main point that he was making. Hopefully that will be beneficial to you, even though you maybe weren't able to be here at 9:15. Let's see. Home Builders Retreat. If you hadn't signed up, please get signed up, because that retreat is coming up October 18th through the 20th in Branson, Missouri. This Saturday is going to be our opportunity to love on the community with our free fall clothing giveaway. And there is, I don't guess we got this announced very well, but there is a sign up for those that are willing to work and help us get that put together. And there is going to be a time this Thursday after school where folks are going to get together, try to get the, as it were, the yard sale, although it's not a yard sale, but to get the clothing giveaway set up and organized. And if you're willing to help, those of you with yard sale skills, if you're willing to help us out with this, please sign up back there, and also, if you can, be here Thursday, and certainly be here Saturday for the big event. And then Brother Dustin has organized a trunk or treat coming up October 31st, and there's a list of things that they need in order to do what they want to do. They need packages of hot dogs and buns, bags of Halloween candy, I suppose. Volunteers who can work some little booths, or the trunks of cars, I guess you should say. Some folks to cook hot dogs and so forth. And then those willing to pray. Need prayer warriors as well. There's a sign up on the bulletin board for that as well. And if you need more details, or you got questions or ideas, see Brother Dustin. Okay. Then the next ladies' Bible study is called Love Life Again. It's going to be starting the week of October 15th. See Miss Stacy if you're interested in participating in that. And is there any other announcements right now? I won't take up too much of Brother Jerry's time.
Lunch fellowship.
Lunch, okay, business meeting, lunch fellowship next week. Oh yeah, and the briefest of men's meetings right after services, right here. 5 minutes, I hope, tops. Some important insurance things that I used to go with, and I'll need to run down a couple other items, but just a very brief men's meeting right after services. Lunch fellowship next Sunday. All right, I only have one. Actually, I have 2 prayer cards, but for the same person. We need to pray doubly for Liz Chastain. We need to pray for her. Also for Brother Benny, having got a tractor on his knee and broke it. That didn't help things while she's going to be going through some radiation treatment. So remember the Chastains. They certainly need our prayers. Having said all that, I need to get out of Brother Walter's way and let's begin our worship time. Well, we're going to start with the offering. So we're going to start our worship time with the offering. Children's shout. Yes. Y'all can go. Our ushers will come. We'll stand and prepare to receive the offering this morning. Brother Michael, would you write prayer, please?
Dear Lord, thank you for this day, the blessings that we receive from it. Thank you for allowing us to be here.
Let's all stand together.
Let's do it on the way out the door.
There'll be a mission offering on the way out the door. So don't put your wallets up here. Grab a hymnal. Let's turn to number 447. We'll sing Near to the Heart of God. Number 447.
There is a place of quiet My Father is rich in houses and lands. He holdeth the wealth of the world in his hands. Of rubies and diamonds, of silver and gold, his coffers are full, he has riches untold. My Father's own Son, the Savior of man, he lived and he died for the poorest of men. And now he's pleading my pardon on high, and by his blood I've been bought with a price. I'm a child of the King. I'm a child of the King. He's called me his own, and forever I'll sing. All glory to God, I'm a child of the King. I once was an outcast, a stranger on earth, a sinner by choice and an exile by birth. But I've been adopted, my name's written down, and heir to a mansion, a robe and a crown. I'm a child of the King. I'm a child of the King. He's called me his own, and forever I'll sing. All glory to God, I'm a child of the King. Oh, what great love lavished over us. Oh, what great love lavished over us. Oh, what great love lavished over us. Oh, what great love lavished over us.
Let's all stand together one last time for the annual congregational song. This month we've chosen a praise hymn called You Make Me Brave. So let's sing together. If you don't know it, you will next week.
I'll stand before worship time music. I love that arrangement of the Chandler 11am. Had not heard that. And that got me pumped up. That's stronger than a garlic milkshake right there. And, isn't it wonderful that we as God's children can enjoy what God has made for us? And that we can have pleasure with what He has pleasure in. And it's okay. It's okay. This morning we laid some foundational truths about the importance of living as spiritual beings opposed to living as sexual beings or worldly beings. And we talked about the need for the awareness of some biblical facts. And just to recap very quickly, we saw how that God is creator. He created all things, and He created them for His pleasure, and they're good. We talked about that. I believe we also understand that the proper order is for the creation to worship the Creator. I don't think I covered that, but we'll throw that in. I won't charge y'all extra for that. But we know that that's to be true. We talked about the fall of man and how that disrupted the relationship with God. It brought a curse upon the earth. But how that God, in His mercy and His grace, provided the way through His Son Jesus Christ for us to be brought back to Him, to be redeemed, to be reconciled unto God. And we saw how that we're not to love this world, but we're to love God as His children. And we talked then next about awareness of purpose. You know, we would be very miserable if we didn't understand that God's got a purpose for us. I remember just as a 5-year-old boy, I've told this story before many times, sitting on the doorstep of our house for half a day and pondering. My mom comes outside and says, "Jerry Lee, what's wrong with you?" I said, "I'm just thinking." She said, "What are you thinking about?" I said, "I got a question." She said, "What is it?" I said, "Why am I 5 years old?" You know, I believe within every one of us, God instills a need to understand that we have a purpose. God didn't just create us by accident. We have a purpose. And I believe that for us to be truly, happy and enjoy life that God intended for us, we understand we have a purpose, and God shows us what that purpose is. He wants us to trust His Son. I am a child of the King through Jesus Christ. We talked about Paul understood the purpose as of a child of God, that I'm going to live for Him. There in 2 Corinthians 5. I'm going to live for Him who died for me. And how that Christ, His love influences us to live for Him. And we have a ministry. God's made it possible for us, praise God, to be ambassadors for Christ. And we in God's stead can say to the world, "Be ye reconciled to God." Now I want us to think about this. We have this wonderful ministry. We understand our purpose as children of God, but we do not go unopposed. We have an opposition. We have some hindrances. Someone was to ask me, in your 45 years of ministry, Brother Chandler, what has been your greatest problem to deal with? My greatest problem is me. That's my greatest hindrance. You see, we need to understand that as children of God who's been reconciled to God, we've received His Holy Spirit within us to lead us. He quickens us. He makes us spiritually alive, and He leads us and He guides us. And I'm so thankful for the Holy Spirit's work in our life. He convicts us when we sin, but we still have that old Adamic nature to contend with. He said, "Well, how are we going to cope? We got this problem." Well, God's got that covered. And that's what we want to talk about today. Look in Colossians chapter 3. And we get an understanding, awareness of our dual nature. We have the Spirit of God, we have our spiritual nature, and we also have our flesh nature. And Paul does a good job at helping us to understand this. And he says in chapter 3 and verse 1, If then ye be risen with Christ, do what? Seek those things which are above. God's people need to understand that God has good things for us. And we can enjoy them. If you be risen with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ sitteth on the right hand of God. Our joy is the Lord. Set your affections on things above and not on things on the earth. The biggest problem that we have today is that people are living trying to satisfy their lives with things that will not satisfy. The more you get, the more you want, and you're still unhappy. Right? Well, it's because we're to, as God's children, set our affections on things that are above, not on the things of the earth. And here's how Paul dealt with his own personal life, and he encourages the church at Colossae to do this. You are dead, and your life is hid with Christ in God. Listen, Christ is to be our all in all. Our life is to be completely centered around Christ. We say, it's not about us. Would you agree with that? We say it's all about Christ. Let's take it a little step further. Not only all about Christ, it's only about Christ. Okay? And when we learn that, then we learn that life then comes into perspective in a way that God wants us to see life. And when Christ, who is your life, I love that. We could camp out on that for a while. Don't have a lot of time, but listen, I want to ask you a question today. Is Christ your life? There's a lot of things that we enjoy, but who is your life? Sounds like a guy that once wrote, "For me to live is what? Christ, and to die is gain." Same earthly author, right? Oh, think about it. When Christ, who is your life, shall appear, then shall ye also appear with him in glory. Listen, don't get so used to things here. We've got a purpose here. We've got things to go on, but God's got better things for us, brothers and sisters. Christ will one day again appear, and ye shall appear with him in glory. Don't get so attached here. And then he says in verse 5, mortify, therefore, your members. What's that word, mortify? Huh? Put it to death. When I was living in Romania, trying to learn, Romanian, I learned more Romanian from a guy who couldn't speak English than anybody else. We'd ride around, we'd go to the villages in the car, and I'd see a dog, and I'd say, "That's a dog." He'd look at it and he'd say, "Queenie." And I'd try to pronounce it. I'd say, "Queenie." He said, "No." Queenie. Okay. We went a little farther, and there was there was a dead dog in the road. One of them sail dogs we know about here in Arkansas. And so I said, "Queenie." He said, "Da. Queenie mort." I said, "Mort, da, mort." Which mort means Dead dog. And so I learned that word, dead. And I thought, hey, wait a minute. That's the same word in Colossians. Mortify, put to death. And Paul is saying, put to death, therefore, your members which are upon the earth. And then he names them. And I bet you anything, y'all have discussed this in some of your other services, haven't you, here in the family conference? Things like what? Fornication, uncleanness, inordinate affection, evil concupiscence, covetousness, which is idolatry. For which things' sake the wrath of God cometh upon the children of disobedience, in the which ye also walked in some time when ye lived in them. But he says this, but now ye also put off all these: anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy communication out of your mouth. Lie not one to another, seeing that ye have put off the what? The old man. What's the old man? That's your Adamic nature. You need to learn. We need to learn. I must learn to put to death the desires of the old man, to die to that old way and live unto the new, unto Christ. You have put off the old man, notice this, with his deeds, and have put on the what? The new man, which is renewed in knowledge after the image of him that created him. Wow. This reveals to us in a very simplistic way that we have a dual nature. As children of God, we have a dual nature. We have our spiritual nature, the new man, and we still have our old man or our Adamic nature. And listen, they are contrary to one another. It makes it very hard to do what we should do. There's a conflict going on. There's a war that's going on. He said, well, how do we deal with this? Who wins out? I love the old illustration. I don't know who started this, but years and years ago I heard an illustration about the Indian guy who was describing the internal conflict of the old nature and the new nature fighting. He said it's like two dogs. One's a black dog and one's a white dog, and they're fighting. And he says, which one? Someone asked him, which one wins? He said, the one I feed the most. Someone else said it and says, the one I say sick 'em to you. But you think about that. Listen, if we die, as Paul is encouraging us, to the old man, we live unto Christ, and that's the way we cope. That's the way it works out. But listen, if we refuse to die to the old man, and we give the old man the attention, and we feed it, we encourage it, don't be surprised when you find that you're not successful in every area that you want to be in your ministry, in your life. You find yourself giving in to desires. You find yourself giving in to things that are not pleasing to God. It will bring, if you're a child of God, it will bring guilt. It will bring shame. But we must learn to what? Die. Paul says, I die daily. He talked about that conflict. You know, it's like a tongue twister, but look in Romans chapter 7. He describes his difficulty with this dual nature. And he says in Romans chapter 7 and verse 14, he says, for we know that the law is spiritual, but I'm carnal, sold under sin. For that which I do, I allow not. For what I would, that do I not. But what I hate, that I do. Does that sound like a conflict? Oh, it is. If then I do that which I would not, I consent unto the law that is good. Now then, it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me. For I know that in me, that is, in my flesh, dwelleth no good thing. We got to understand that, folks. In this flesh dwells no good thing. For to will is present with me, but how to perform that which is good I find not. In desperation, Paul is saying, I have this conflict. This is why he was saying, I got to die to this. For the good that I would, I do not. But the evil which I would not, that I do. Here's Paul's problem. Let's put it in Donaldson terms this morning. When I want to do good, I don't do it. This is very plain. I do things I really don't want to do. He says here, now if I would not, if I do that I would not, it is no more I that do it. Sin dwells in me. Here's the conflict. Then I find then a law that when I would do good, evil is present with me. For I delight in the law of God after the inward man. You see, in that inward man, in that new nature, in that Spirit of God that's dwelling in and makes us alive spiritually. He delights, he said, I delight in the law of God after the inward man. But I see another law in my members warring against the law of my mind and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin, which is in my members. Listen, Paul just being totally honest. He said, oh, wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from the body of this death? Then look at verse 25. I thank God through Jesus Christ our Lord. So then, with the mind, I myself serve the law of God, but with the flesh, the law of sin. Who shall deliver me from this body of death? Paul said that this conflict is so fresh. It's like, you're actually saying, Keith, it's like carrying a dead man. You know, actually what the Romans would do in the times of their war and their conquest, they would literally strap dead bodies to their captives. You might have to carry the dead body of your comrade. They would literally strap them to your back, and you would carry that dead, lifeless body. And this is the expression, as I understand it, that he's talking about. You ever pick up something that's so hard to carry that can't support? That dead body has bones, and muscles, has no life, and it can't support it. It's just there. I think about that every time I try to move a mattress. A mattress, you know, it's not that heavy, but it's just there. It's big, and you know, it's hard to carry. But when he says, "Who shall deliver me from this body of death?" That's what he's talking about. He's talking about this old nature, this sin nature that has its judgment already pronounced. It's weighing me down. It's hindering me. It's holding me back. It's causing me to do that I would not want to do. The inward man saying one thing, and this is causing another. But he realizes that there's a time coming when they will lay that aside. And I'm looking forward to that day too. I'm tired, brothers and sisters, of many times living with guilt and shame. Conviction of what I know to do right, but I find myself not doing. This is what Paul's talking about. We've got to determine, listen, how are we going to cope with this? And it comes down a whole lot to our matter of choice as children of God. that I'm going to live for him who died for me. We talked about that this morning. It's about my affections being on things above and not on things of the earth. It's about what I nourish, what I feed. If I feed on the Spirit, I find myself doing good. But if I feed the flesh and the desires of the flesh and I follow after that, then I find things present in my life that I know are not honoring to God. The thing I know also is that every child of God is a reality. So be aware of this dual nature. Now, how can we live? How can we cope with this? The awareness of how we can live to honor God. Look in Galatians chapter 5. Just back a few pages. Galatians chapter 5. And Paul makes a statement here in verse 16. I remember the first time I saw this statement, it just floored me. Gave me such understanding about me and what I needed to do. And he said, "This I say then, walk in the Spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh." In our desperation, we say, "Oh, Father, how can I cope with this body of death? How can I deal with this nature that's contrary to your nature that you put within me?" Here is the answer plainly. Walk in the Spirit. Don't walk after the lust of the flesh. Walk after the Spirit. And what will happen? Ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. That's why I say it's a matter as a child of God of choosing. I choose God. I choose His will. I choose His way. I choose to please Him rather than myself. And the outcome is we find ourselves not giving in to the lust of the flesh. The flesh has lusts. And if we give in to them, we will fulfill them. For the flesh lusteth against the Spirit. Here's this warfare. Here's this conflict. And the Spirit against the flesh. And these are contrary one to the other, so that ye cannot do the things that you would. You think Paul's talking about the same thing he was over in Romans 7? I guarantee you. But if ye be led of the Spirit, not under the law. Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envies, a long list, isn't it? Murders, drunkenness, revelings, and such like, of the which I tell you before, as I have also told you in time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. Pretty strong language in it. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law. And they that are Christ have crucified the flesh with the affections and lusts. If we live in the Spirit, let us also what? Walk in the Spirit. Let us not be desirous of vain